So I had a question the other day. What happens if an injured worker has multiple serious or significant injuries and they don't resolve? So you've got several ongoing injuries all at the same time. How does that process work? I will tell you, it can be complicated and messy. Generally, what I would tell someone, if you don't have an attorney and you have multiple significant or serious injuries that are all ongoing at the same time, you often would be best served by retaining an attorney. At least talk to an attorney in your area. Go to the State Bar website, look for certified specialists in workers' compensation, and talk to an attorney in your area for a free consultation. At least get an idea. But if you are going to go it on your own, here's just a few ideas or thoughts that I have to try to at least set you on the right path. So what can happen? You're working at the employer. You have, let's say, a back injury. You're off work for a few months. You go back to light duty work. And while you're doing light duty work, a box falls on you and injures your shoulder and neck, let's say. Now you're off work again. Now they're talking about maybe low back surgery because your back's not getting better. Maybe you have shoulder surgery because of the box falling on you. It can get complicated. It gets even more complicated if there are different specialties involved. So generally, you are entitled to up to 2 years of temporary disability for an injury. So if you had two completely separate and distinct injuries, you could be entitled to up to 2 years of temporary disability for each injury. However, they can run concurrently. They don't necessarily have to be consecutively. So if you're off work for the back injury and then you're off work for the shoulder injury as well, those two time periods are going to be running together at the same time. Temporary disability runs that way. You're going to eventually need a qualified medical examiner, most likely, before you can settle your case, if the injuries are similar specialties. So you could go to, for a shoulder and a back injury, you could go to a chiropractor, you could go to an orthopedic surgeon, you could go to a physical medicine and rehabilitation doctor, you could probably go to a pain management doctor. There's quite a number of specialties that could address a back and a shoulder injury. It gets more complicated if you have different specialties involved. So let's say you were at work, you had your back injury, your shoulder injury, and then you went back to work for a short time and you caught COVID while at work. Well, the orthopedic surgeon won't be able to address the COVID, so you're probably going to have to see another QME for that. So that would be internal medicine, maybe infectious disease. I think the DWC, the Division of Workers' Compensation, doesn't have a lot of infectious disease doctors. So probably internal medicine, maybe pulmonology. You have to see a QME for that injury. So conceivably, now you have 3 injuries. There could be 2 years of temporary disability for each of the 3 injuries, but again, they can run concurrently. You're going to need, before you settle the case, to get all 3 of those injuries permanent and stationary. So according to the Labor Code and Title 8 of the regulations, the condition has to be well stabilized and unlikely to improve or worsen over the next year with or without treatment. So the condition kind of is at a plateau. If the condition gets to a plateau for the shoulder, gets to a plateau for the low back, but not for COVID, chances are you're not going to be settling the case, because if you're at one employer with one insurance company for all 3 of those dates of injury, generally they'll want all 3 to be resolved at the same time. This is just because there can be interaction between the different injuries. So maybe your shoulder injury might get rated on a diagnosis-related estimate method in the AMA guides, and the low back might be based on a diagnosis-related estimate, maybe a DRE category 2. But what can happen is if the doctors rate by analogy under an Almaraz-Guzman approach, the doctors might be rating the shoulder and the low back under a different section of the AMA guides, which more accurately reflects the disability. And the thing is, once they do that, that might fall under some sort of same rating as the COVID, depending on whether you still have pulmonary issues, a shortened distance that you could walk, that type of thing. So generally, multiple dates of injury with the same employer, the same insurance company, they often will end up settling together because it's possible there could be overlap between some of the disability. If you had multiple significant injuries at different employers, those generally can settle separately. You're going to be generally entitled to a QME for each date of injury, each separate injury, because they're at different employers, different insurance companies, different defendants. And because of that, they have different exposures. So insurance company A might be willing to settle their low back injury with you, regardless of what happens with insurance company B and the shoulder injury, because it was at different employers or different insurance companies. It really can get messy. It really is very fact dependent. Every case is so unique in workers' compensation. I've been doing this for 20 years. No two cases are ever exactly alike. They're always different. And when there are significant serious injuries and there are multiple injuries, it generally is in the best interest, I tell injured workers, at least reach out and talk to an attorney. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button down below and be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you see new videos coming out.